Before we start, take a moment to like and subscribe. In a land of wandering tribes and vast, empty deserts, there lived a man named Abraham. He was an old man, with skin weathered by the sun and a beard as white as snow. His wife Sarah was also very old. For their entire lives, they had longed for a child, a son who would carry on their name and their story. But year after year, their wish remained unfulfilled, seemed impossible. Yet they held on to a profound promise from God, that they would be the founders of a great nation, with descendants as countless as the stars in the night sky. And against all odds, when they were both far beyond the age of having children, that miracle came true. A son was born to them, a perfect, precious boy whom they named Isaac. He was the living proof of God's promise, the joyous culmination of a lifetime of waiting. Abraham loved him more than anything, not just as a son, but as the very embodiment of his hope and faith. Isaac's laughter filled their home, and his presence made Abraham's world complete. Life was peaceful for many years with Abraham and his beloved son. The familiar rhythm of the days was broken only by the gentle joy of watching Isaac grow. Then, one day, the voice of God spoke to Abraham. It was a voice he knew well, a voice that had always brought promises and guidance. But this time, the words were unlike anything he had ever heard. "Abraham," the voice began, "take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will show you." A bolt of ice must have shot through Abraham's heart. The words landed like a physical blow, shattering the peaceful world he had built. This was not just a difficult command, it was an unimaginable contradiction. How could the God who had given him this precious gift, the very fulfillment of his promise, now ask him to take it away? His mind reeled, searching for a reason, a way out, an explanation that made any sense. The command flew in the face of everything he had learned about God's faithfulness. The pain was excruciating. It wasn't just a sacrifice of a son, but of the laughter, the hope, and the future that Isaac represented. Yet a deep, unwavering faith rose above his fear and grief. It was an impossible choice, but in that moment, Abraham's obedience was a testament to his trust. He did not argue or question. Without hesitation, he rose early the next morning before the sun had even touched the horizon. In the quiet darkness, he split the wood for the fire, his movements slow and methodical, each piece a heavy symbol of the task to come. He then saddled his donkey and called 2 servants to join them. He did not wake Sarah, knowing her heart would break at the thought of the journey and the purpose that lay at its end. He simply took Isaac and began the long, silent trek, his heart heavy with a grief that words could not contain, his every step a silent, agonizing act of faith. The 3-day journey to the mountain of Moriah was an agonizing test of Abraham's resolve. Each step through the arid, unforgiving landscape felt like a betrayal of his heart. The relentless sun beat down on his shoulders, and the desert wind whispered through his tattered clothes, a haunting chorus of his own internal doubts. All the while, the physical weight of the wood on Isaac's back was a constant, harrowing reminder of their grim purpose. Abraham's mind was a maelstrom of sorrow and confusion, but he forced his face to remain a mask of calm, hiding the storm raging inside. He couldn't let his son see the pain that was tearing him apart. Isaac, innocent and carefree, walked beside his father, likely chatting about the birds or the lizards they saw. He was blissfully unaware of the sacrifice that awaited him. On the 3rd day, as the sun began to climb the sky, the mountain came into view. Its peak was a stark, solitary silhouette against the bright horizon. It was a summit of profound meaning, and as they drew closer, Abraham's heart felt as though it might crack under the pressure. Isaac, with a childlike curiosity, broke the heavy silence. "My father," he said, his voice bright and clear against the stillness. "Look, we have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" This question, so simple and pure, was a knife to Abraham's already wounded heart. He paused, his voice trembling slightly as he looked into his son's trusting eyes. "My son," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering." It was a statement of profound faith, a desperate prayer disguised as a promise. He didn't know how or when or where. He just knew that the God who had given him Isaac would somehow make a way. Upon reaching the summit, the air grew even heavier with a suffocating tension. The top of the mountain was stark and desolate, with only a few scattered rocks and thorny bushes. With trembling hands, Abraham began to build a stone altar, each rock he lifted feeling heavier than the last. He worked with a grim, somber determination, his mind fixated on the task at hand to keep from unraveling completely. He then arranged the wood on the altar, his movements slow and methodical. It was at this moment that he had to tell Isaac the terrible truth. He explained what God had asked of him, and Isaac, seeing the deep sorrow in his father's eyes, did not resist. He trusted his father completely and lay upon the altar, his youthful face a mixture of confusion and quiet resolve. Abraham's hands, which had so often held his son in loving embrace, now moved to tie him to the altar. The moment was agonizing, a silent and terrible farewell. He then took the knife, the glint of the steel a horrifying reflection of the sun. He lifted his hand, his body shaking with a primal grief that threatened to consume him. This was the moment of complete surrender, the final test. Was his faith in the giver of the promise stronger than his love for the gift? Just as the blade began its descent, a powerful voice thundered down from the heavens. "Abraham! Abraham!" The voice of an angel. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not held back your only son from me." Abraham's hand froze, the tension in his body dissolving into a flood of overwhelming relief. He collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he gasped for air. He looked up, his tearful eyes scanning the hillside, and there, caught by its horns in a thicket of bushes, was a ram. God had provided the lamb, just as Abraham had said he would. With a heart full of gratitude, Abraham took the ram and offered it as the sacrifice instead of his son. A true testament to God's providence and mercy. The big question is, why? Why would God put Abraham through such a terrible test? The answer is a little complicated, but it's also very powerful. It wasn't about sacrifice, it was about loyalty. God didn't want Isaac to die. He wasn't testing Abraham's willingness to harm his son. He was testing Abraham's willingness to put God first, no matter what. He wanted to know if Abraham loved the gift, Isaac, more than the giver, God. Abraham's willingness to go through with it proved that his faith was absolute. It was a dramatic demonstration. The world at that time was full of people who sacrificed their children to their gods. By stopping Abraham and providing a ram, God was showing everyone that he is a different kind of God. He is a God who provides, not a God who demands human sacrifice. It proved Abraham's faith was real. It's easy to have faith when things are good. This moment showed that Abraham's faith wasn't just talk. It was deep, genuine, and powerful. Because of this, God reaffirmed his promise to Abraham, telling him that his descendants would be as countless as the stars and the sand on the seashore.